The space around Kepler Station was filled with fire and death. Ships exploded in bright flashes of light that lit up the darkness. Laser beams cut through the void and missiles streaked across the battlefield like angry hornets. The station itself was a massive structure, home to 50,000 people from different species across the galaxy. Right now, those people were hiding deep inside, praying that their walls would hold. Warlord Zethrak stood on the command deck of his flagship, watching the battle with cold satisfaction. He was a Vraxian, a species that looked like they were made for war. His skin was dark red and covered in thick scales. His eyes glowed yellow in the dim light of his ship. He had won hundreds of battles in his long career, and this one would be no different. "Destroy the left flank," he ordered, his voice deep and rough. "Then focus all fire on the station itself. I want this over in 10 minutes. His crew moved quickly to obey. The Vraxian fleet was massive, over 200 warships of different sizes. They had come here to crush the Galactic Coalition forces that protected this sector. The Coalition was an alliance of peaceful species who tried to maintain order in the galaxy, but peace meant nothing when facing Vraxian guns. On the Coalition command ship, Admiral Cathara was running out of options. She was a Centauri, tall and thin with blue skin and large black eyes. She had been a soldier for 30 years, but she had never seen a situation this bad. Her fleet was down to 40 ships, and half of those were badly damaged. "Admiral, the defensive line is collapsing," her tactical officer reported. His voice was tight with stress. "We cannot hold them much longer." Cathara stared at the tactical display on her screen. Red dots representing enemy ships far outnumbered the blue dots of her own forces. She knew what she had to do, even though it hurt her pride. "Send a distress signal on all frequencies," she ordered. "Tell anyone who can hear us that we need help. Include our position and the strength of the enemy force." Her communications officer, a young Centauri named Velthus, worked quickly at his station. "Signal sent, Admiral. But the nearest Coalition fleet is 2 days away. They cannot reach us in time." Cathara nodded slowly. She had known that already. The distress signal was more for the record than anything else. When historians looked back at this battle, they would know that Kepler Station had called for help. They would know that her people had not given up without a fight. "All ships pull back to defensive formation around the station," she ordered. "We will make our stand here. If we are going to die today, we will die protecting those people inside." The remaining Coalition ships moved closer to the station, forming a protective shell around it. It was a brave gesture, but Cathara knew it would not be enough. The Vraxians had too many ships, too many weapons. In a few more minutes, they would break through. Then they would destroy the station and everyone inside. Zethrak watched the Coalition ships retreat and smiled. It was the smile of a predator that knew its prey had nowhere left to run. He raised one clawed hand, ready to give the final order. "All ships prepare for final assault. Target the station's main reactor. We will end this now." His weapons officer began charging the main guns. Every ship in the Vraxian fleet did the same. In 30 seconds, they would fire together. The combined power would be enough to crack the station open like an egg. But something strange began to happen. All across the battlefield, sensors started going crazy. Energy readings spiked to impossible levels. Space itself seemed to shimmer and bend, like heat waves rising from hot ground. Alarm bells rang on every ship, Coalition and Vraxian alike. "What is that?" Zethrak demanded, staring at his sensor display. "Some kind of weapon?" His science officer was frantically checking his instruments. "I do not know, Warlord. The readings make no sense. It is like space is tearing open." On the Coalition command ship, Velthus was seeing the same thing. "Admiral, there is something happening. Energy levels are off the scale. I have never seen anything like this." Cathara leaned forward in her chair, her large eyes fixed on the main view screen. "Show me." The screen changed to show the area where the energy readings were strongest. At first, there was nothing but empty space. Then the air itself seemed to ripple. Colors that should not exist flashed across the void. And then, as if stepping out from behind an invisible curtain, a ship appeared. It was unlike anything anyone in the galaxy had ever seen. The hull was smooth and angular, colored midnight black with silver lines running along its length. It was big, about the same size as a Vraxian heavy cruiser, but it looked faster somehow, more dangerous. The ship bristled with weapons and its engines glowed with a soft blue light. On the side of the hull in bold white letters were words written in a language nobody recognized. The characters were simple and clean. UCS Horizon. For a long moment, the entire battlefield seemed to freeze. Coalition and Vraxian ships alike simply stared at this impossible newcomer. It had appeared from nothing, materializing in the middle of a war zone without any warning. How was that possible? What kind of technology could make a ship invisible? Inside the black ship, Captain Jack Morrison stood on the bridge with his hands clasped behind his back. He was a human, though nobody in this part of space had ever heard of his species. He was in his early 40s, with short brown hair starting to gray at the temples. His face was lined with experience and his blue eyes were hard with determination. "Full sensor sweep," he ordered, his voice calm and steady. "I want to know everything about this battlefield in the next 10 seconds. His crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had trained for this moment for years, but now that it was here, the weight of it was enormous. Earth was revealing itself to the galaxy for the first time. What happened in the next few minutes would shape humanity's future among the stars. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes stood at the tactical station, her fingers dancing across the controls. She was younger than the captain, maybe 35, with blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her green eyes were sharp as she processed the flood of data coming in. "I count 212 Vraxian warships, Captain," she reported. "Coalition forces are down to 37 functional ships. The station is heavily damaged but still intact. Civilian population is approximately 50,000. Weapons status?" Jack asked. Commander Paul Stevens looked up from the weapons console. He was a big man with dark skin and broad shoulders. His expression was grim. "All systems are green, Captain. Railguns are charged. Missile tubes are loaded. Energy weapons are at full power. We are ready." From the engine room, a voice crackled over the intercom. It belonged to Danny Wright, the chief engineer. He was younger than most of the senior staff, barely 30, but he knew the ship's systems better than anyone. "Captain, all reactors are running hot. We have got full power to shields and engines. Just say the word." Jack took a deep breath. This was it, the moment of truth. Earth had spent 20 years hiding, watching, learning about the galaxy from the shadows. They had seen the wars, the empires, the way powerful species crushed weaker ones. They had decided to stay hidden and build up their strength. But they had also decided that if they ever saw innocent people about to die, they would act. "Open a channel to the Coalition command ship," Jack ordered, "and somebody get me an analysis of those Vraxian vessels. I want to know their weak points." Velthus nearly jumped out of his chair when his console beeped. "Admiral, we are being hailed. It is the unknown ship." Cathara straightened in her chair, trying to project confidence she did not feel. "Put them through." The view screen flickered and suddenly she was looking at a face she had never seen before. The being looked somewhat like a centauri, but shorter and more heavily built. His skin was a light pink color, and his eyes were small compared to hers. But there was intelligence in those eyes and strength. "This is Captain Jack Morrison of the United Colonial Ship Horizon," the being said. His voice was translated automatically by the communication systems. "We received your distress signal. We are here to help." Cathara found her voice. "Captain Morrison, we are grateful for any assistance. But who are you? What species? We have no record of your people in any database." Jack's expression was serious. "We are called humans, Admiral. We come from a planet called Earth, and right now we need to deal with those Vraxian ships before we can have a proper conversation. Do I have your permission to engage?" Cathara looked at her tactical display. The Vraxians were recovering from their shock and beginning to move again. In seconds, they would open fire. She looked back at the strange human captain and made a decision. "Permission granted, Captain Morrison. We will support you however we can." Jack nodded once. "Understood. All ships, stay clear of our firing lines. This is going to get loud." He turned to his crew and his voice rang with command. "All weapons free. Target the Vraxian flagship first, then work your way down. Show them what Earth can do." The horizon moved like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. One moment it was floating in space, still and quiet. The next moment it was accelerating at speeds that should have been impossible. The ship twisted and turned through the battlefield, dodging incoming fire with movements that seemed to break the laws of physics. Warlord Zethrak watched in disbelief as his weapons completely missed their target. His gunners were the best in the Vraxian fleet, trained to hit fast-moving targets. But this human ship was something else entirely. It moved like it knew where the shots would be before they were even fired. "How's it doing that?" he roared at his science officer. "Nothing can move that fast without turning the crew into paste." The science officer was staring at his instruments with wide eyes. Warlord, their inertial dampeners must be far beyond our technology. The gravitational forces inside that ship should be killing everyone aboard. But they are compensating somehow. I have never seen anything like it. Before Zethrak could respond, the Horizon opened fire. The first weapon to activate was something the Vraxians had never encountered before. A railgun, though they did not know to call it that. Magnetic coils along a long barrel accelerated a solid projectile to a fraction of the speed of light. When the tungsten round hit a Vraxian destroyer, it did not explode. It simply punched straight through the ship from front to back, leaving a perfectly round hole through which atmosphere and crew were violently expelled into space. The destroyer's reactor, damaged by the impact, went critical 3 seconds later. The ship exploded in a ball of blue-white fire that briefly lit up the entire battlefield. One down, Paul Stevens reported calmly from the weapons console. Targeting the next ship. The Horizon fired again and again and again. Each shot was perfectly aimed, each one finding a critical system. Engines exploded. Weapon batteries were blown off hulls. Bridge sections were holed, killing command crews instantly. The railguns fired so fast they sounded like a continuous roar of thunder. But the railguns were not the only weapons the Horizon possessed. Missile tubes along the ship's flanks opened and began launching a steady stream of projectiles. These were not simple rockets. Each missile had its own AI guidance system that could think and adapt. When Vraxian point defense systems tried to shoot them down, the missiles dodged and weaved. When the Vraxians tried to jam their sensors, the missiles switched to backup systems. 6 missiles converged on a Vraxian cruiser, overwhelming its defenses through sheer coordination. They hit the ship from 6 different angles at exactly the same moment. The cruiser simply came apart, torn into pieces by the synchronized explosions. Then the Horizon activated its energy weapons. Particle beam cannons mounted along the ship's spine lit up with a brilliant white light. Coherent beams of focused particles accelerated to incredible speeds, reached out across space. They were not like the plasma weapons the Vraxians used, which could be blocked or deflected. These beams cut through shields like they were not even there. When a beam touched a ship's hull, the metal simply vaporized. A Vraxian battleship, one of the largest ships in the fleet, tried to turn its heavy armor toward the Horizon. The human ship responded by focusing 3 particle beams on a single point. The beams cut into the battleship like a hot knife through butter. They sliced the massive vessel in half lengthwise. Both halves tumbled away, leaking air and fire and bodies. On the Coalition command ship, Cathara and her crew watched in stunned silence. They had been fighting the Vraxians for hours, barely managing to destroy a handful of enemy vessels. This human ship had destroyed 12 Vraxian warships in less than 3 minutes. Velthas, Cathara said quietly. Are you recording this? The young communications officer nodded, his eyes wide. Yes, Admiral. Every second of it. Command will not believe this if they do not see it with their own eyes. I am watching it with my own eyes, Cathara replied, and I am not sure I believe it either. The Vraxian fleet, recovering from their initial shock, began to coordinate their response. Over 100 ships turned their weapons toward the Horizon and fired at once. The space around the human ship filled with plasma bolts, laser beams, and missiles. Surely nothing could survive such an onslaught. But the Horizon's shields held. The ship was surrounded by a shimmering barrier of energy that absorbed the incoming fire. The barrier flashed and sparked as weapons struck it, but it did not break. The humans had shield technology that could withstand firepower that would destroy any coalition ship 3 times over. Shields at 82%, Lisa Hayes reported, redistributing power from secondary systems. We can take this kind of punishment for hours if we need to. Jack nodded, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. Focus fire on their command ships. Take out their leadership and the rest will fall apart. The Horizon changed targets, now focusing on the larger Vraxian vessels where the fleet commanders would be stationed. A heavy cruiser exploded as a railgun round penetrated its magazine, setting off all its stored ammunition at once. A battleship lost its entire bridge section to a particle beam, leaving it drifting and leaderless. Zethrak felt fear for the first time in decades. He had thought he was attacking a new species, probably primitive and easy to defeat. Instead, he had found something terrifying. These humans had technology that was centuries ahead of anything the Vraxians possessed, maybe ahead of anything in the entire galaxy. All ships concentrate fire on that vessel, he ordered. Everything we have. Overwhelm their shields through sheer volume. But even as he gave the order, he knew it was useless. The human ship was too fast, too agile. It danced between his vessels, using them as cover, never staying in one place long enough for concentrated fire to hit it. And all the while it kept shooting, kept killing. Danny Wright's voice came over the intercom from the engine room. "Captain, I am reading some heat buildup in the port particle cannon. Nothing critical yet, but we have been firing pretty heavy." "Rotate to the starboard cannon," Jack ordered. "Give the port side time to cool." "Already on it, Captain," Danny replied. "These weapons were built to take punishment, but there are limits. We are pushing them pretty hard." Jack allowed himself a small smile. "That is what we trained for, Danny. Keep those reactors running hot." The battle began to shift. The Vraxians, realizing they could not hit the horizon directly, started trying to box it in. They moved their ships to surround the human vessel, trying to eliminate its room to maneuver. It was a solid tactic, one that might have worked against any other ship, but the horizon had one more trick to show them. The ship's engines flared bright blue, and suddenly it accelerated straight up relative to the plane of battle. The ship moved so fast it seemed to simply vanish from one spot and reappear in another. It had jumped above the Vraxian formation, and now it had perfect firing angles on the ships below. "How are they doing that?" Zethrak's tactical officer shouted. "No ship can accelerate that fast." "I told you," the science officer said, his voice shaking. "Their technology is beyond ours. We cannot fight this. We cannot win." Zethrak's pride would not let him accept that. "We are Vraxians. We have conquered 100 worlds. We will not run from one ship." But his fleet was already breaking apart. Ships were exploding or fleeing or simply drifting dead in space. The horizon was methodically working its way through the Vraxian formation, destroying everything in its path. The human ship seemed to have unlimited ammunition, unlimited power, unlimited endurance. The coalition ships, realizing they were witnessing something historic, began to support the human vessel. Their weapons were weaker, their tactics more conventional, but they added their fire to the fight. Together, human and coalition forces began pushing the Vraxians back. On the horizon's bridge, Lisa Hayes was coordinating with the coalition ships, sharing targeting data and tactical information. She was amazed at how quickly the aliens adapted to working with human technology. Within minutes, they had established a smooth communication protocol and were fighting as a coordinated unit. "Captain, the coalition forces are asking if we have any weaknesses they should cover," Lisa reported. Jack thought for a moment. "Tell them to focus on the smaller Vraxian ships, the frigates and destroyers. We will handle the big ones." Another Vraxian battleship exploded as the Horizon's missiles found its reactor. The ship's death was spectacular, a series of secondary explosions that tore it apart from the inside. Debris rained across the battlefield, forcing nearby ships to take evasive action. Zethrak's flagship shuddered as coalition weapons struck its weakened shields. He knew he had lost. His fleet was in ruins. Over half his ships were destroyed or disabled. The rest were scattered and demoralized, and that terrifying human ship was still out there, still fighting, still killing. "Warlord, we must retreat," his tactical officer pleaded. "If we stay, we will all die here." Every instinct in Zethrak's body screamed at him to refuse, to fight to the last. But he was a soldier before he was a warrior. He knew when a battle was lost. "Signal the fleet," he said, his voice heavy with defeat. "All ships are to retreat. Jump to hyperspace as soon as you are able. We will regroup at the fallback point." The remaining Vraxian ships began to disengage, their engines flaring as they prepared to jump away. Dr. Karen Phillips stepped off the transport beam and onto the deck of a damaged coalition cruiser. The air smelled of smoke and burnt metal. Emergency lights flickered overhead, casting strange shadows on the walls. She carried a medical kit that looked small but contained technology far beyond what the coalition possessed. "Where are your wounded?" she asked the Centauri officer who met her. The officer, still in shock from the battle, pointed down a corridor. "Medical bay is this way. We have 32 injured, 8 critical. Our doctors are overwhelmed." Karen nodded and started walking, her team of human medics following behind her. She was in her late 30s with red hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her green eyes were focused and professional. She had been a trauma surgeon on Earth for years before joining the colonial fleet. She had seen plenty of injuries, but treating alien species would be a new challenge. The coalition medical bay was crowded and chaotic. Wounded crew members lay on beds or on the floor. Their own doctors moved between them. doing what they could with limited supplies. The chief medical officer, an older Centauri with gray skin, looked up as Karen entered. His expression was tired and grateful. "Are you the human doctor?" he asked. "I am," Karen replied. "Dr. Karen Phillips. My team is here to help. What do you need most?" The Centauri doctor gestured at a patient on a nearby bed. "We have several with radiation poisoning from a breach in the reactor shielding. Our treatments can only slow the damage, not reverse it. These people will die in a few hours unless something changes." Karen moved to the patient and pulled out a small scanning device. She ran it over the patient's body, reading the results on a holographic display. The radiation damage was severe but not beyond human medical technology to treat. "We can help with this," she said confidently. She reached into her kit and pulled out a small injector. "This contains nanobots programmed to repair cellular damage. They will seek out and fix the damaged DNA, then flush the radiation from the body. The patient should show improvement within minutes." The Centauri doctor stared at her. "Nanobots? Inside the body? That is possible?" "On Earth, it is standard treatment for radiation exposure," Karen replied. She pressed the injector against the patient's neck and activated it. "We will need to monitor the patient carefully to make sure the nanobots adapt properly to Centauri biology, but the basic cellular structure is similar enough that it should work." While her team moved through the medical bay, treating the wounded with human technology, Karen found herself answering dozens of questions from the coalition doctors. They wanted to know everything. How did the nanobots work? What other treatments did humans have? How advanced was Earth's medical science? Karen answered what she could, but she was careful not to reveal too much. Captain Morrison had been clear in his briefing. Help the wounded, save lives. But remember that Earth's technology was a closely guarded secret. Every piece of information they shared could change the balance of power in the galaxy. On Kepler Station, similar scenes were playing out. Human engineers were helping repair damaged sections. Human rescue teams were pulling survivors from collapsed areas. And everywhere they went, the aliens they met stared at them with a mixture of awe and fear. Meanwhile, across the galaxy on the Coalition capital world of Nexus Prime, an emergency session of the Council was underway. The massive chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of species, all talking at once. Some were angry, some were scared, and some were excited. But all of them wanted answers about the mysterious humans who had appeared from nowhere. Ambassador Threk of the Morvanian hegemony was one of the angriest. He was a large being, easily 3 meters tall, with gray skin and 4 arms. His voice boomed through the chamber, demanding attention. "This is unacceptable," he shouted. "These humans admit they have been spying on us for 20 years. 20 years of watching us, studying us, learning our weaknesses, and we knew nothing about them. How can we trust such a species?" Elder Morath, the council chancellor, raised one hand for silence. He was ancient even by the standards of his long-lived species. His skin was wrinkled and pale, but his eyes were sharp and intelligent. "Ambassador Threk raises a valid concern," Morath said calmly. "We must understand the intentions of these humans before we can determine how to respond. I have invited them to send representatives to address the council. They should arrive within hours." Another council member, a being made of crystalline structures that reflected light in rainbow patterns, spoke up. "Did they not save thousands of lives at Kepler Station? Are we to condemn them for hiding while praising them for revealing themselves to help others? They only revealed themselves because they wanted to," Threk countered. "What if their intentions are not peaceful? What if they have been preparing for conquest? Their technology is clearly superior to ours. If they wanted to conquer the galaxy, who could stop them?" The chamber erupted in arguments again. Some agreed with Threk, seeing the humans as a potential threat. Others argued that any species with such power who chose to save lives rather than take them deserved a chance to explain themselves. The debate raged on for hours. Captain Jack Morrison sat in the Horizons briefing room, preparing for the meeting on Nexus Prime. He was not going alone. Lisa Hayes would accompany him, along with Greg Turner, Earth's diplomatic attaché. Greg was a calm man in his 50s with gray hair and the patient manner of someone who had spent decades in difficult negotiations. "What should we expect?" Jack asked him. Greg considered the question. "Fear, mostly. They will be scared of our technology, scared of what we might want, scared of the unknown. Some will try to make demands. Others will try to make threats. We need to stay calm and professional. Show them we are here as friends, but make it clear we are not here to be pushed around. And if they demand we share our technology, Lisa asked. We refuse, Greg said simply. Politely but firmly. Earth's technology is ours. We developed it, we control it. We will share what we choose to share, when we choose to share it. Not before, Jack nodded. He understood the stakes. This meeting would set the tone for Earth's entire relationship with the galaxy. If they showed weakness, they would be seen as targets. If they showed too much strength, they would be seen as threats. They had to walk a very careful line. The Horizon docked at Nexus Prime's orbital station. Jack, Lisa, and Greg transferred to a shuttle that took them down to the planet's surface. As they flew over the capital city, they got their first real look at galactic civilization. The city was enormous, stretching to the horizon in every direction. Buildings reached kilometers into the sky. Ships of every size and shape filled the air lanes. Billions of beings from hundreds of species called this place home. Impressive, Lisa murmured, staring out the window. Very, Jack agreed. But remember, impressive does not mean invincible. Earth has fewer people and fewer resources, but we have something they do not. Innovation, determination, the will to survive. That counts for a lot. The shuttle landed at the council building and the 3 humans were escorted inside. The corridors were huge, built to accommodate species of all sizes. They passed beings that were tall and beings that were short, beings that walked and beings that floated, beings that looked almost human and beings that looked nothing like any life form Earth had ever seen. Finally, they were led into the council chamber itself. It was even more impressive than the city outside. The room was circular and massive, with seats rising in tiers around a central floor. Hundreds of representatives filled those seats, all watching as the humans entered. Elder Morath rose from his seat at the center of the highest tier. Welcome, humans of Earth. I am Elder Morath, Chancellor of the Galactic Coalition Council. We are grateful for your assistance at Kepler Station. Many lives were saved by your actions. But we have questions that must be answered. Jack stepped forward, his posture confident but not aggressive. I am Captain Jack Morrison. This is Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes and Diplomatic Attaché Greg Turner. We are honored to address this council and will answer your questions as openly as we can. Then let us begin, Morath said. Your species admits to observing our civilization for 20 years without revealing yourselves. Why did you choose to hide? Greg stepped forward to answer. When Earth first developed the ability to travel between stars, we encountered evidence of the galactic community. We studied your history, your wars, your politics. We saw how new species were treated. They were either absorbed into larger empires, forced into disadvantageous alliances, or exploited for their resources. Earth's government decided that revealing ourselves prematurely would be dangerous. We chose to wait, to learn, to grow stronger before making contact. So you were afraid, Ambassador Threck said, his voice mocking. You hid like frightened children. We were cautious, Greg replied evenly. There is a difference. Earth has a long history of first contact situations. They do not always end well for the less advanced civilization. We were not willing to take that risk with the survival of our entire species. Another council member spoke up. But your technology is clearly not less advanced. Your ship destroyed a Vraxian fleet that outnumbered it 100 to 1. How did you achieve such technological superiority while remaining hidden? Supreme Commander Rathkon sat in his command chamber on the Vraxian homeworld, reading the battle report for the 3rd time. His clawed hands gripped the datapad so tightly that cracks appeared in the device. Around him, his senior officers stood in nervous silence. None of them wanted to speak first. Rathkon was larger than most Vraxians, his scales darker red and thicker. Scars covered his body from 100 battles. He had led the Vraxian military for 20 years, conquering system after system. He had never known defeat. Until now. One ship, he said finally, his voice dangerously quiet. One single ship destroyed or disabled over 100 of our vessels. One ship forced Warlord Zethrak to retreat. One ship made the mighty Vraxian Empire look weak and foolish. Explain this to me. His chief strategist, a cunning officer named Velkar, stepped forward carefully. Supreme Commander, the humans possess technology far beyond our current capabilities. Their weapons are more powerful, their shields stronger, their ships faster. They have achieved a level of advancement that we estimated was still decades away for our own research programs. Then our research programs are too slow, Rathkon snapped. Speed them up. Double the resources, triple them if needed. I want weapons that can match these humans. Archon Velmor, the head of Vraxian scientific research, shook his head. Supreme Commander, with respect, it is not that simple. The humans did not achieve their technology through normal advancement. They must have discovered something, some key breakthrough that accelerated their development. Without knowing what that breakthrough was, we cannot simply recreate their achievements. Rathcon's eyes narrowed. Then we will take their technology instead of developing our own. Find their home world. Locate this Earth they spoke of. We will attack them there, conquer their planet, and claim their secrets for the Empire. The room fell silent. Several officers looked uncomfortable. Finally, Velkar spoke again. Supreme Commander, such an action would be extremely dangerous. We do not know how many ships the humans have. The one we encountered might be their only vessel, or they might have hundreds. We do not know the strength of their home defenses, and we would be attacking on their territory, where they have every advantage. I do not care about the risks, Rathcon said coldly. I care about results. The humans humiliated us. They showed weakness to the entire galaxy. If we do not respond with overwhelming force, others will see us as weak. The Empire cannot afford that. Find Earth. Assemble our largest fleet. We will crush these humans and show the galaxy that the Vraxian Empire is not to be challenged. As his officers hurried to obey, Rathcon allowed himself a cold smile. The humans had made a mistake by revealing themselves. They had shown their strength, but they had also shown that they existed. And now the full might of the Vraxian Empire would fall upon them. Light years away, aboard the horizon, Jack Morrison received a communication from Earth. He sat in his ready room, watching the recorded message from Fleet Admiral Helen Carter. She was a woman in her 60s with iron gray hair and sharp brown eyes. She had commanded Earth's defense forces for over a decade. Captain Morrison, she said from the recording, congratulations on your success at Kepler Station. Your actions have finally revealed humanity to the galaxy. Now we must deal with the consequences. The Council meeting on Nexus Prime has concluded. From what our diplomatic team reports, the reaction is mixed. Some species are grateful, some are suspicious, and some are calculating how they can use us or counter us. Helen paused, her expression growing serious. More concerning is intelligence we have gathered about the Vraxian Empire. Our stealth probes have detected massive fleet movements. They are assembling ships from across their territory, bringing them together into what appears to be the largest armada they have ever fielded, and the trajectory analysis suggests they are preparing to move toward the Sol system. Jack felt his stomach tighten. This was exactly what they had feared. Helen continued. Earth Command has made a decision. We are not going to wait for the Vraxians to attack us at home. We are going to meet them on our terms. I am sending the Second Fleet to your position. 60 ships, Captain. Our newest and best. You will take command of the combined force and position yourself between the Vraxian fleet and Earth. If they want to fight, we will give them one they will never forget. The message ended. Jack sat back in his chair, processing the information. 60 ships sounded impressive, but the Vraxians could field hundreds. The Battle of Kepler Station had been one ship against many. The coming battle would be far larger and far more dangerous. There was a knock at his door. Come in, he called. Lisa entered, followed by Paul and Danny. They had clearly heard the news as well. Their expressions were serious but determined. So it is really happening, Lisa said. Full-scale war with the Vraxian Empire. Maybe, Jack replied. The Vraxians are coming, that much is certain. Whether it becomes a war depends on what happens when we meet them. If we can defeat their fleet decisively enough, they might decide humans are not worth fighting. If we show any weakness, they will keep coming. Paul crossed his arms. Then we had better not show any weakness. Our weapons worked well at Kepler Station, but we were fighting surprised and disorganized opponents. The Vraxians will be ready for us this time. They will have studied the battle recordings. They will know our capabilities. They will know what we showed them at Kepler, Danny corrected. But we held back. We did not use even half of our full capabilities. We have weapon systems we did not activate, tactics we did not employ. When the Second Fleet arrives, we will be able to coordinate on a level they cannot imagine. Our quantum communication links will let us act as one unified force. That is an advantage no other species has. Jack nodded. Danny is right. The Vraxians think they saw our full strength at Kepler Station. They are wrong. When they come for Earth, they are going to learn just how wrong they were. On the Vraxian homeworld, the fleet assembly continued. Ships jumped into the system from every corner of the Empire. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, carriers, supply vessels to keep them fueled and armed, troop transports filled with soldiers. The armada grew larger with each passing day. In the intelligence division, analysts worked around the clock to locate Earth. They studied the horizon's trajectory, working backwards from Kepler Station. They analyzed energy signatures and drive emissions. They captured coalition courier ships and interrogated their crews. Slowly, piece by piece, they narrowed down the search area. Finally, after 2 weeks of intensive work, they found it. A yellow star in a relatively unexplored region of space. 9 planets, one of them in the perfect zone to support life. The third planet from the star showed clear signs of industrial civilization. Cities, satellites, radio emissions. This had to be Earth. When the news reached Rathcon, he immediately ordered the fleet to prepare for departure. 300 ships, the most powerful armada in Vraxian history. Enough firepower to glass an entire planet. Enough troops to occupy a dozen worlds. All of it aimed at one target. How long until we can depart? Rathcon demanded. 2 days, Supreme Commander, Velkar replied. We need to complete final supply loading and crew assignments. Make it 1 day, Rathcon ordered. I want to arrive at Earth before the humans have time to prepare adequate defenses. Speed and surprise will be our advantages. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Helen Carter stood in the war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing ship positions, force projections, and tactical analyses. Around her, the Joint Chiefs of Earth Defense Forces reviewed the battle plans one more time. The Second Fleet has rendezvoused with the horizon, reported Admiral Kyle Brooks, commander of fleet operations. He was a younger officer, barely 50, but brilliant in tactical planning. Captain Morrison has deployed them in a defensive formation at the edge of the Sol system. If the Vraxians come, they will have to go through him first. And if the Vraxian fleet is too large? Asked General Amanda Price, head of Earth's ground forces. She was a tough woman with short black hair and a no-nonsense attitude. 61 ships against hundreds. Those are not good odds, even with our technological advantage. Helen smiled grimly. Then they will fall back to the inner system, where our fixed defenses can support them. We have spent 20 years building up Earth's defenses. We have weapons platforms, missile batteries, railgun installations, Luna, Mars, the asteroid belt, even Earth orbit. Every major body in the system is armed and ready. The Vraxians want to attack our home? Let them come. They will find that Earth does not fall easily. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the weight of the moment. This would be humanity's first major war since achieving space travel. The outcome would determine Earth's future in the galaxy. Win, and they would establish themselves as a power to be respected. Lose, and Earth could be conquered, enslaved, or destroyed. How long do we have? Helen asked. Intelligence estimates the Vraxian fleet will arrive in approximately 2 weeks, Kyle replied. They have to travel through several systems to reach us, and our stealth probes are tracking their progress. We will have warning before they arrive. Good, Helen said. That gives us time to make final preparations. I want every ship checked and double-checked. Every weapon system tested. The Vraxian armada emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, like a swarm of angry insects. 300 warships, their hulls painted in the blood-red colors of the Empire, spread across space in a formation designed to overwhelm any defense. Supreme Commander Rathcon stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, the Conqueror, and felt satisfaction wash over him. Begin sensor sweeps, he ordered. Find the human homeworld and plot our attack approach. His sensor officer worked quickly, then froze. Supreme Commander, I am detecting multiple contacts, ships, many ships. Rathcon frowned. The human defense fleet? How many vessels? 61 confirmed, Supreme Commander. But that is not what concerns me. The officer's voice shook slightly. The entire system appears to be fortified. I am reading weapons platforms around the 4th planet, massive installations in the asteroid belt. The system's moon is covered in defensive emplacements, and the 3rd planet, the one that must be Earth, is surrounded by orbital defense stations. For the first time since ordering this attack, Rathcon felt a whisper of doubt. The humans had not been idle. They had turned their entire home system into a fortress. It does not matter, he said, pushing the doubt away. We have 300 ships. They have 61. Numbers will prevail. All vessels advance toward the 3rd planet. Destroy anything that stands in our way. The Vraxian fleet began moving forward, their formation tight and organized. They had learned from Kepler Station. This time they would not be caught off guard. This time they would overwhelm the humans through sheer mass and firepower. On the bridge of the horizon, alarms blared as the Vraxian fleet was detected. Enemy contacts, Lisa reported crisply. Confirmed 300 warships. They are advancing in battle formation. Estimated time to weapons range 20 minutes. Jack nodded calmly. He had known this moment was coming for 2 weeks. Now it was here and he was ready. Signal all ships. Activate Quantum Combat Network. Begin Defensive Pattern Alpha 7. Across the human fleet, 61 ships moved in perfect coordination. They did not move randomly or by individual captain's judgment. They moved as one unified organism, connected by quantum communication links that allowed them to share information and coordinate tactics at the speed of thought. It was technology the galaxy had never seen before. The two fleets closed on each other. 20 minutes became 15, then 10, then 5. The distance shrank until both sides were within weapons range. For a moment, space hung silent and tense. Then Rathcon gave the order to fire and hell broke loose. The Vraxian fleet unleashed everything they had. Thousands of plasma bolts streaked across space. Missiles by the hundreds launched from their tubes. Laser beams powerful enough to cut through mountains slashed through the void. The sheer volume of fire was staggering, enough to destroy any conventional fleet 10 times over. But the human fleet was not conventional. The 61 ships moved in patterns that seemed choreographed, dancing through the incoming fire with impossible precision. When weapons were about to hit, the ships simply were not there anymore. They dodged and weaved, their movements coordinated so perfectly that it seemed like they could see the future. And when they fired back, every shot counted. Human railguns spoke with thunder, their projectiles accelerated to relativistic speeds. Vraxian shields meant to stop energy weapons were useless against solid matter, moving at a fraction of light speed. The rounds punched through shields and armor like they were paper. A Vraxian destroyer exploded as a railgun round penetrated its magazine. The ship came apart in a bloom of fire that briefly lit up the darkness. Another destroyer died seconds later, cut in half by a particle beam. Then a cruiser, its bridge vaporized by a missile salvo. The Vraxian fleet was dying and the battle had barely begun. Impossible, Rathcon whispered, watching his ships die on the tactical display. How are they doing this? Their coordination is perfect, Supreme Commander, his tactical officer reported, his voice tight with stress. They are sharing targeting data across their entire fleet. When one ship acquires a target, all nearby ships can fire on it, and they are predicting our movements, dodging our fire before we even shoot. Then fire more, Rathcon roared. Overwhelm them. 300 ships should be able to destroy 61 no matter how good their technology is. The Vraxian fleet pressed forward, accepting casualties as the price of closing the range. Their strategy was sound in theory. Get close enough that the humans could not dodge, then destroy them through sheer weight of fire. But executing that strategy against an enemy this advanced was proving nearly impossible. The human fleet fell back slowly, maintaining optimal firing range. They fought like surgeons, each shot precisely placed to do maximum damage. No wasted ammunition, no missed opportunities. Every weapon fired as part of a coordinated ballet of destruction. Paul Stevens on the Horizon's weapons deck was grinning fiercely as he worked his controls. Target destroyed. Acquiring new target, firing, hit confirmed. Target destroyed. His words came in a steady rhythm, each one marking the death of another Vraxian ship. Down in the engine room, Danny Wright monitored the reactors with eagle eyes. Engineering to bridge, all systems nominal. Reactors at 82% capacity. We can maintain this rate of fire for hours if needed. Acknowledged engineering, Jack replied. He studied the tactical display, watching the battle unfold. The Vraxians were fighting bravely, but they were fighting the wrong kind of battle. They were trying to use conventional tactics against an enemy that had moved beyond conventional warfare. Enemy fleet splitting into 3 groups, Lisa reported. They are trying to surround us. Let them, Jack said calmly. Signal the fleet. Execute dispersal pattern Beta 3. Once they are committed to the encirclement, we will show them why that was a mistake. The human ships began to spread out, seeming to give ground before the Vraxian advance. Rathcon saw this as a sign of weakness and pressed his advantage. His fleet surged forward, the 3 groups converging on the human position from different angles. In minutes, they would have the humans boxed in with no room to maneuver. But the moment the Vraxian formation committed to the encirclement, the human fleet activated their secondary weapon systems. Systems they had not used at Kepler Station. Systems the Vraxians did not know existed. Across human space, hidden weapons platforms came online. The orbital defense grid, built over 20 years and hidden from the galaxy through cloaking technology, revealed itself. Thousands of platforms, scattered throughout the Sol system from the orbit of Mercury to the edge of the asteroid belt, all armed with relativistic kill vehicles. "Fire," Jack commanded. The platforms launched their weapons simultaneously. Tungsten rods, each one weighing several tons, accelerated by magnetic coils to 90% of light speed. At that velocity, they were not bullets. They were weapons of mass destruction. Each one carried the kinetic energy of a nuclear weapon, and thousands of them were now streaking toward the Vraxian fleet. The Vraxians had no warning. The projectiles were moving too fast to track. The first indication they had of the attack was when ships simply started exploding. A battleship was struck amidships and split in two, both halves tumbling away, trailing debris and bodies. A heavy cruiser took a direct hit on its reactor and vanished in a flash of fusion fire. Destroyers and frigates were holed through and through, venting atmosphere and dying by the dozens. "We are under attack," the tactical officer screamed. "Weapons fire from all directions. I cannot track the projectiles. They are too fast." Rathcon stared in horror at his display. His fleet was being torn apart by weapons he could not see, fired from platforms he had not known existed. In less than 2 minutes, he lost over 50 ships. 50 ships gone like they had never existed. "Retreat," he ordered, his voice hoarse. "All ships break off and retreat. We cannot fight this." But retreating was easier said than done. The human fleet, seeing the Vraxians try to disengage, pressed their attack with renewed fury. Ships that tried to turn and run were hit from behind, their engines destroyed, leaving them drifting helplessly. The orbital defense grid continued firing, each salvo claiming more victims. On Earth, billions of people watched the battle through the sensors of the defense fleet. In cities and towns, in homes and public spaces, humans saw their military defend their world with a ferocity that made them proud. They saw Vraxian ships exploding. They saw the enemy fleet breaking apart in disarray. They saw Earth winning. President Linda Martinez stood in the Oval Office, watching the battle feed on a large screen. Around her stood the cabinet and military leadership. She turned to address a camera, knowing her words would be broadcast across the planet. "Citizens of Earth," she said, her voice strong and clear. "Today we face our first test as a spacefaring civilization. An enemy came to our home system seeking to conquer us, to take our technology, to enslave our people. They came with overwhelming force, believing their numbers would be enough. But they underestimated humanity. They underestimated our resolve, our ingenuity, our determination to remain free, and now they are learning what it means to challenge Earth." On the battlefield, the Vraxian retreat was becoming a rout. Ships fled in every direction, desperate to escape the killing zone. But the human fleet pursued relentlessly,